Good to go? All right, I've been given the signal that everything is live and good to go, so I'm going to talk into this microphone and welcome you. My name is Charles Dupree. I'm superintendent, and I just wanted to come in for a minute, and they told me I literally have like 30 seconds, so I'm going to talk really fast because we got a lot of work to do. You have a lot of work to do today. And I just want to thank our AAC for making this a priority, all the members for being here today. I know you all meet on a regular basis, but this is a huge thing that we're asking you to look at today. It's innovative. It's really groundbreaking in Texas and certainly in Fort Bend ISD. And I also want to thank all the members of the Local Innovation Committee who've worked very, very hard. And I know you all are everyone's going to meet each other as we go through this. And we also have some just community members who've come out to hear and be a part of this and see what's going on. So I want to thank them as well for being here. This is good work that's been going on in the last really couple of months in our district. The board's very excited. I'm very excited. I think we have a good draft plan, and I'm eager to kind of see what the AAC thinks about it today. So anyway, with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to the next person. It's going to be Dr. Christy Whitbeck. She chairs the AAC for the district, so this is really her meeting, so I'm happy to introduce her and let her take over from here. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone. It is one of my responsibilities in Fort Bend to chair the AAC. However, today it will be very different because I'll be turning that responsibility over in just a moment. I wanted to welcome everyone as well, and I wanted to just clarify a few things to make sure that we're all on the same page. So to members of our AAC, on your agenda, as you know, this is a regular time, and we have about 4 meetings a year. You'll notice that our future meetings in March and May are listed for you, just to make sure you have a refresher there for your memory. And also I wanted to, just for everyone's benefit, explain that we did have a few people request that this meeting be held later or even tonight, but we were concerned that we had already published our times to our members and we wanted to keep true to your personal time. So we have this videoed. It will be on the website for everyone's ability to review in our community. And then the last thing I wanted to share was, people, how do you get on the AAC? It is BQA local board policy that actually outlines who is on the committee, how many parents, how many community members, how many professional staff. So if you're interested in that, look at BQA. And so the purpose is today only for the local innovation plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth Martinez, our Chief of Staff.
Definitely need the taller microphone. Thank you, Dr. Whitbeck. I'm excited to be here this evening, and I'm going to just kind of launch by giving a little bit of information. Christy mentioned the policy BQA local and how that drives the work of the Academic Advisory Council. And typically, as you all know, you serve in an advisory capacity for the school district. Today is a little bit different. Actually, it's much different. You're going to step across that advisory line and you're going to become decision makers. You have a role today in the District of Innovation process to be a voting contributor to this plan moving forward or not moving forward. And that's dictated by Texas Education Code and by this District of Innovation process. So you're going to step out of that advisory for us and move into decision makers. And we're going to guide you through that process. I'm going to...
I'm sorry, let me recognize. I'm interrupting. We have a tight schedule here, but before we go any further, I do want to ask if there are any local innovation committee members present in the audience, if you'll just please stand and be recognized. I know I saw a few come in. Thank you. These are the members that gave of their time, and we had meetings mostly on Friday nights into the evening, so thank you. And with that, we had a subcommittee that formed outside of the large committee that was a writing development team, and I do want to recognize and introduce them by name because they're going to have some speaking parts tonight. So Kristen Adams is representing as a secondary teacher, one of our campus teachers. Mandy Antolini is also secondary. She's a campus assessment coordinator. We have Christopher Hill, who wears a couple of hats. He happens to be a parent. The obvious that he's the only man on our committee up here. He's also a community member and a Fort Bend Education Foundation board member. We have Nicole Jackson representing Fort Bend ISD Elementary, Glenda McCall also representing Fort Bend ISD Elementary, and Carrie Waschenfelder with the Fort Bend Fort Bend Employee Federation. And I'd also like to introduce Debbie Estrak. She served as our legal counsel all throughout this process. Beth, you were introduced to Beth, and then we had Dr. Shelby McIntosh, who actually facilitated all the committee meetings, and unfortunately, she was not able to join us tonight. So, oh, I'm sorry. The most important person on the whole, I didn't have her on here because she was on the main committee, Queen Anya Hellam. She is one of our students, and you're going to hear more from Queen in just a moment. So I'm going to turn it back to Beth to go into the.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we had many more advisory committee members, or excuse me, local innovation committee members who may be trickling in through the afternoon, but we'll recognize them, and I'll tell you a little bit about the membership as we move forward. So the District of Innovation process, the way that this came to be is in the early fall, our school board and started learning about the District of Innovation process and signed a resolution, put a resolution in act at the October 14th board meeting because they believed it important to engage with a committee representing the community to see if there are innovations that charter schools have the right to use that would help us to waive statutory requirements, allowing for more innovation, more creative practices to meet students' needs. And so it was quite a challenge, actually, in many ways, and first and foremost being that unlike many boards in the state, our board chose not to set parameters in place for the planning. And so I think I could speak for the committee and for the staff. That was really kind of a challenge. It was exciting and we welcomed it, but we also kind of, where do you begin? How do you start to eat this elephant? Particularly with the committee, as we launched into that first meeting, we served the role as staff to really remove obstacles for them in terms of logistics and allow our outside facilitators to engage with the committee around that process. And so that was a lot of the first couple of meetings, is working through the research to determine what are the statutory requirements, what are the laws out there that might be serving as roadblocks to our innovation within Fort Bend ISD, and what did the committee see as important to remove? What are we able to remove and what could we remove? And so that was the board's intent in enacting that resolution, to bring to be a committee comprised of staff, comprised of community members, students, parents in the community, and they each chose, our board members each chose 3 people, and our superintendent appointed 9. And so that committee then started meeting over time, over the last couple of months, to develop a local innovation plan. And really what that looked like was delving into the research with our facilitators and with our legal counsel here, Debbie, who'll speak to you momentarily about what District of Innovation was not. But really it allowed time for the committee to determine what is out there keeping us from doing what we need to be doing, and what do we need to be doing, what are we already doing in the district. And so there was time spent with subject matter experts from within the district for our committee to ask questions, get further information, and then they broke into subcommittees that really focused on certain areas of interest for the committee. And then at the very last meeting, they all decided who would be part of the writing development team to take the work of those subcommittees and the presentations that had been made by the committee members and form that into the draft plan that you will see this evening and that you will learn more about and take into consideration as you move forward to vote. And so with that, I'd like Debbie for you to share with us what District of Innovation is not.
So, as Beth mentioned, the reason that District of Innovation was adopted by the legislature was to help school districts be on an even playing field with open enrollment charter schools, because you had these charter schools that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, is that better? Okay, so we wanted, the legislature wanted school districts to be able to enjoy some of the same flexibilities that open enrollment charter schools enjoyed. So what is a district innovation not? There are some common misconceptions that a district of innovation can opt out of every law in the education code. And they can't. If a law applies to an open enrollment charter school, it applies to a school district, and there is no getting out of it. So that means you cannot get out of accountability. You can't get out of TEKS. You can't get out of special education law, federal law, bilingual education restrictions, criminal history records checks, all kinds of things. There are vast numbers of statutes in the education code that are not on the table for discussion. Unfortunately, for some, assessments are not something we can opt out of, so they're still there. Don't look for them in the plan. So that's what the District of Innovation Plan is just a look at what are those laws that charter schools don't have to comply with. Is that something that the school district can look into, can exempt out of, and enjoy some of those flexibilities to be more creative, more innovative? Another misconception is that the plan you're going to receive is the end-all, be-all. That's not the case. This is kind of a door that allows the district to open it, go through, come up with plans, innovative plans to implement what these innovative ideas were that this great committee came up with. So think about that when you're looking at this as well. A lot of these things will require a policy change in order to implement it. There's one exception that does not, and we'll definitely address that and let you know which one it is. But the majority of these exemptions require a lot of looking into, a lot of vetting, and a deep look at policy changes before we get there. And speaking of policy, as far as the Innovation Committee came up with, as Beth mentioned, it was really hard to sit back and look at just this global picture of the law and think, okay, where are we? What do we need to do? And a lot of the ideas that came out of the committee were policy decisions, things that the district already could do. I mean, innovative, great ideas, but nothing that the law prevented. Maybe it's a funding issue. Maybe it's just not an avenue we've ever gone down before. And so instead of, limiting the committee to just those exemptions that we can opt out of, we essentially made two different documents. One is a policy recommendation document that will be shared with all stakeholders and policy drafters, and then we have the plan, which is what addresses just those laws that are standing in the way of whatever innovations have been conceptualized. Okay? All right, I think I hit it all.
Okay. So that brings us to this afternoon and your role, AAC. And as I mentioned, you're stepping out of that advisory role and into the decision-making role. You will be asked to vote this evening after you hear about the whole plan, and then provided that you approve the plan, if you approve the plan, which requires a majority vote, then we would post the plan for 30 days for public comment. And during that 30 days, we'll have that on our website, and we'll intake the comments and the feedback. And before the board would consider the plan, we would create a document and information to share with our board about the public comments and the feedback and insights that we've received and questions that we've received from the community. And so once that 30-day public posting period is completed, then the plan would be presented to the board for consideration, and the school board would need to approve the plan by a 2/3 majority. So it's a little bit different than other items the board might consider, and it does require that 2/3, like you require the majority vote of AAC for this to pass. And so we really believe that it is so important to get not only your vote this evening, we'll talk a little bit later about the ballot, but also your feedback, just as it will be, provided you approve, that we get the community's feedback. And so Dr. Whitbeck mentioned the time of the meeting and that sort of thing, and we know that while it is convenient for the AAC because you committed to this time and you've made that available on your calendar, we know that it provided some challenges to our community and folks who wanted to be here in person, and hence the video. But another avenue that another opportunity that we're going to make available to the community, should you approve the plan, is that in a couple of weeks we will host a community meeting where people can come and get face-to-face information from stakeholders and from the committee prior to making public comment, if they feel more comfortable with that. So we want you to be aware of that as well as you share information back at your in your community or at your campus. So with that, I will share with you again that the Local Innovation Committee, is comprised of community members, students, teachers, and administrators. And like I mentioned previously, the board designated 3 members apiece and the superintendent 9. And our writing committee is going to be passing out the draft plans We do not have enough draft plans for everyone in the audience because it is draft, and should the AAC not approve it, then we would need to, I'll talk to you later about what the next steps would be if they don't approve the plan, but rather than put the document out into circulation, we decided that it best just to give to the AAC so they can contemplate, and then provided they approve the plan, it will be posted on the website for public comment tomorrow, and we can make some hard copies available at that time if you're interested in that. The Local Innovation Committee, as I said, met over a considerable amount of time. They were just dynamic, engaged, passionate folks that really dug deep on weekend nights and worked really hard to try to understand this process, try to understand those laws or requirements that might be standing in our way, and work with a group of folks that they got to know and worked really hard with. So I just really appreciate the time and commitment by that committee.
Thank you, Beth, for the tall people. Okay, we have distributed the local innovation plan to the AAC members. I want to just take a moment to walk you through that. And then for the audience who don't have a copy of the plan, we're going to go through it so you will hear what the plan includes as far as the exemptions and all. So I'm going to just point you to the first page is a table of contents. I'm not going to read all this to you, but I just want you to be familiar with what's in this, because we're going to ask that you hold your questions and your comments until the end so that you can hear everything that we have to present. But this is a great way for you to follow along or to write down your questions, again, to reference it. Actually, we do not have a slide, but we're going to say it all out loud, and then this will be posted on the website. The exact copy of what we're presenting tonight, provided it's approved. If it's not approved, then we will explain, what that will include. Absolutely, yes. Okay, for everyone to know, there's a table of contents that has all the pages. We have an executive summary that just basically talks about the process that Beth has already mentioned. We posted in here because when the committee began their work, they started with Fort Bend ISD's core beliefs and commitments. This is all posted on the website. It's in many places throughout Fort Bend ISD. We also contemplated what we have in our district goals and priorities. This too is posted on our website and readily available in many documents in the district. And then something that's a little new and different that we're just starting to talk about is the Fort Bend ISD profile of the graduate. So we use that, what do we want our students to leave Fort Bend with? And then we listed all the community, local innovation committee members on this sheet. This too is already posted on the website for anyone to view on that site. And then the plan actually starts on page 6. So I'm not going to go into it, but page 6 through page 10 is the plan, and then we're going to have people come up and speak to it. So now that you know kind of the format of the plan, certainly follow along with us and write your questions down as we go, and then we'll give you a time to ask your questions of us. But knowing, like Debbie said, and Dr. Dupree alluded to, District of Innovation is a fairly new concept to all of that. So we certainly took that into consideration, and we too had to get up to speed when we started this work on the committee. I know that Debbie, our attorney, did a great job of explaining the laws behind this and what we could do and what we could not do. But on my slide, I labeled it ensuring safeguards, because I know my husband is a Fort Bend ISD teacher, so of course he was asking me, what are you doing? What is this going to mean? And how does this impact me? Because anytime you talk about a plan, that usually initiates change, and with change comes uncertainty. So all of that is certainly appreciated by us. So with that, just know the sheer composition of the Local Innovation Committee included the majority of the members on that were community members. Some of them have kids in our schools, some did not, but there was just an ample amount of representation of our community on that committee. We also had Fort Bend ISD students, and we had teachers, we had a few administrators, and it was a pretty comprehensive group of people. So as they worked through the plan, working on the local innovation plan that you have in your hand, they talked all throughout it that they realized that like Debbie said, if you were to approve this and it gets to the board and they approve it that night, we will not be ready to put much of this into play, with the exception of the calendar, which we'll go into detail about that in just a moment. So with that, I have on the slide implementation plans, Because with any good work, when there's change involved, we want to get the right people at the table to do the work. And we know what success we had with this committee, with the writing team and with the local innovation committee. When I say stakeholders, depending on what it is we're talking about, I envision having parents at the table, having our community members at the table, having the voice of the teacher in the room, having some of our students, because we produce the best work when we look at it through every lens. So we know that stakeholder means a comprehensive, inclusive group of people. Also, once you identify the stakeholders who to sit at the table, we need to come up with implementation plans. We know if we rush into anything and do it without thinking through it, then we don't often have the most fidelity behind it. So anything that we do, depending on this plan, opening the door for future innovation, would require sitting at the table and determining the plan, looking at a scope. And a plan would include looking at the task and identifying the priority, establishing timelines, the people responsible, how would we monitor it, how would we evaluate it and make adjustments. So just know there would be tremendous accountability around any type of implementation from this plan going forward. And with plans, like Debbie alluded to, some of this, because if we're exempting out of laws, we would have to revise some of our local policies. And just know there's a very rigorous, methodical process for that. We're not allowed to just revise a policy and put it into play. We have to go through the steps, again, with community members and stakeholders at the table, depending what it is, of course. But ultimately, to revise a policy, the last step is board approval. So we would have to take it to the board and explain it to them and have them vote to approve it if we were to revise any of our policies. And then finally, every decision that this committee has made, and I can speak on their behalf on this, they are doing the best they can to make all decisions in the best interest of our children. And we know if we're going to meet the needs of our children, we have to equip our staff to do so. And we're hoping with the possibility of innovation, we'll do just that. And speaking of students, I'd like to introduce Queen Anya Hellam to the podium to speak to you for a few moments.
Hello. As Ms. Carabine just mentioned, my name is Queen Anya Hellam, and I'm a high school senior at Stephen F. Austin High School. And the previous speakers have already mentioned the difficulties we faced going into planning the District of Innovation plan for this year. So as I can tell by your faces, and as you can tell by my hairdo, we're all here for business. So I'll just jump right in to my experience as a student. So going in, my first hope with the District of Innovation Committee was to be able to tell my fellow students that our district really does care about us, because I know right now a lot of students feel that their teachers only care about their attendance and not their academic progress. So I wanted to change that. So that's why I was really excited, and I'm really proud of the work that this committee has been able to do. And going off from that, the way we were able to accomplish such a comprehensive plan, I feel, was by doing what all good leaders should do. I'm also a part of the Student Leadership Program 102, so that really affected the way I viewed our work, because it really took everybody's individual talents and abilities pulling together. We had to adapt, organize, and trust our meeting facilitators to lead us in the right direction. And with that, I'm sure that through the exemptions that we chose and the innovations that we are proposing, that the most benefits will go to both educators and students and everybody in between that we have considered. Because Fort Bend Independent School District is working hard to provide, to equip and inspire the next generations of leaders and to help them to accomplish more than they can ever imagine. FBISD exists to inspire and equip all students to pursue futures beyond what they can imagine. This is our goal, and this is what we hope we have accomplished, and we hope you see as you read our plan. So I hope we have the support of all you AAC members. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicole Jackson, and I am going to be starting the actual bulk of the plan now. If you want to turn to page 6, where our plan begins. As I said, I'm Nicole Jackson. I'm a graduate of Fort Bend Austin High School, and I'm in my second year of teaching art at Manuel Elementary. As a new teacher, I was honored. Sorry, not a public speaker. I was really honored to be chosen for the opportunity to represent our diverse student population. When we first got on the committee, we really didn't know what to expect. We all had a lot of really good ideas about innovation, but we needed some place to start. One of the things that kept coming up was the calendar, as I'm sure you've all heard. It's a real hot topic right now. Our biggest concern was the first day of school, our start date. The current start date limits the time that we have during the school year. So the first thing that we wanted to do was eliminate that start date to balance our 2 semesters. As it stands now, our fall semester has 4 weeks less of instruction than our spring semester, which has a lot of implications on delivery of instruction, testing for high school students, all sorts of things. So that was our biggest concern with the calendar. In addition, we also wanted to have some more innovations. We opened the door for a lot of possibilities with the exemptions from the start date and end date of our calendar. Some of the possibilities that came up in our discussions were the ability to end school slightly earlier for high school students to enroll in early summer college courses. We also wanted to expand district programs for orientation for our transitioning age students, like our kindergartners, 6th graders, and 9th graders. We also wanted the ability to have flexibility in distributing our professional development days more throughout the year. And then also the option to add a teacher workday near the end of the 9-week periods to help our teachers assess their students more, be able to catch up on those things like grading and all that, and plan for their upcoming instruction. While our committee was working, Dr. Whitbeck was also receiving input from our committee with the calendar committee to create a more innovative calendar. Of course, she cannot use this unless the District of Innovation is passed, the plan is passed by the AAC. So pending the approval of the plan, her committee has worked very hard to instate that first day of school exemption. That is the one exemption that does not require the policy changes. So that's one thing that would go immediately into effect pending the approval of our plan. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Debbie. She's going to go into more of the legalities of our exemptions for the calendar. Thank you.
Great job.
Okay, she did a great job explaining the school calendar. The reason that it said 4 different laws is when you think of the calendar, it's not just the school year, but also the school day. So there are 4 laws in play. One says that the school district may not start school before the 4th Monday in August. Last year, that was August 22nd. This year, or next school year, it's August 28th. So that's a big swing, right? The other law dealing with calendar is the last day of school, which says you cannot end before May 15th. It's probably unlikely that the district would ever want to end before May 15th, but if you want to give the district full flexibility over the calendar, then it makes sense to exempt from both of those restrictions. The other two provisions that are in that section of the exemption deal with how a school day is defined. School day is defined as 420 minutes of instruction time or 7 hours. So some exemptions or some innovations around that school hour is perhaps having a little bit longer day, Monday through Thursday, so you can have an early release on Friday. That's something that's going to take some looking at, stakeholders, teachers, parents. Is this something that we want to do? But it would authorize those individuals to look at that as a policy decision. Would that be beneficial for our staff and our students?